Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to talk about something that is top of mind for me as a US freelancer because yesterday was September 15th and I had to pay my quarterly taxes. Now, this may not sound like a glamorous or ultra exciting topic, but it is important to be aware of quarterly taxes if you're a freelancer. Now, before we dive in, let me be clear. I am not a tax professional. I am a learning and development expert. But I'd like to share my experience and general information in the hopes that it will help you, especially if you're just getting started in freelancing or thinking about jumping into freelancing. Of course, everyone's situation is different, so if you have specific questions, make sure you consult with a certified tax advisor or accountant. Now, at least in the US, when you're an employee, your employer withholds taxes from each paycheck and sends them to the government for you. But oftentimes, as a freelancer, you are paid on a 1099 basis. That means that no one is paying the taxes for you. You are responsible for paying your own taxes. Because of that, both the federal government, through the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service, and most state governments require freelancers and self-employed folks to pay estimated quarterly tax. Basically, instead of waiting until April to pay a giant lump sum on tax day, freelancers pay in 4 installments throughout the year. The schedule that the IRS has established is pretty standard. Quarterly taxes are due 4 times every year. On April 15th for income earned between January and March, on June 15th for income earned between April and May, and on September 15th for income earned between June and August, and then on January 15th of the following year for income earned between September and December. Now, you'll notice that it is approximately every 3 months, but it's not exactly every 3 months because sometimes it's 2 months and sometimes it's 4 months in between. So I have memorized the dates because I've been freelancing for a while now. But when I first started, I had to check on them to stay on top of things. Now, most states follow the same tax schedule that the federal government, the IRS, does. Mine does, but please check your state's tax website to confirm because some states do have slightly different rules. Now, how do you pay these taxes? Well, it's actually pretty easy. Unsurprisingly, the IRS has made it easy for us to make payments to them. The best way to do it, or the easiest way in my opinion, is to use the IRS Direct Pay site. It's available at irs.gov/payments. And you basically just choose make a payment, and you'll choose the estimated tax option, which is Form 1040-ES as your payment type. And then you just enter your personal information, the amount you want to pay, and your bank account details. When you do submit the payment, please be sure to keep a copy of the confirmation number for your records, just in case. I always take a screenshot myself. Now, if you use the method that I just mentioned, There are no additional fees, and the payment goes directly from your bank to the IRS. So you can actually do it even the day that it's due, which is fabulous. You can also schedule payments in advance if you want to set them up and not think about them again until next quarter. I haven't personally done that myself. Another option that's available through that website is to pay by credit card through an IRS approved payment processor. Now, there is a small fee. Right now, it's less than 3%. But if you need the flexibility or the float, that can be a good backup method. But of course, if you're able to avoid that fee, that is ideally the best option, to pay directly from your bank account instead of through a credit card. Many states also have similar online portals where you can pay directly. Some states do take payment by check as long as the check is dated by the due date and the postmark on the envelope is by the due date. But be sure to check with your state's tax site as well so that you know your state's methodology. Now, I do have some tips for managing quarterly taxes that I've learned along the way that I hope will be helpful with you. First and foremost, it is definitely advisable to set aside money as you earn it. A good rule of thumb is around 30% or 1/3 of your income to be set aside for taxes. I know it sounds like a lot, but I know that that is often what it ends up being, and better to have a little extra than not enough. This way, when quarterly tax deadlines roll around, you're not scrambling to try to find the money. Now, on a personal note, I used to be very good about setting money aside. Every quarter, I'd take 1/3 of what I earned and I'd put it in a separate account for taxes. But in the last year or so, I haven't been as disciplined because I've had some additional expenses. I have 2 children that I'm paying tuition for, and it's made things a little bit harder. So there have been instances when the due date arrives, I sometimes find myself scrambling for the money or putting some of it on my credit card to float it for the month. Especially in April, when yearly taxes are also due, or in June, when there's only a 2-month gap after the April payment. I'll admit that sometimes it's stressful. I wouldn't advise you to approach it that way. Of course, sometimes we have to. My original method is much more highly recommended. But I'm just telling it to you straight. Second, use a separate account. Some freelancers find it helpful to move their tax money into a separate account so that they're not tempted to spend it. Now, I'll be honest. I initially resisted using a separate account just because I thought I could keep track of it mentally and be disciplined. But in practice, it's way too easy to use the money for other things because it's just there. So once I set up a separate account and started moving the tax money there so that I could just withdraw from that account on the day that the quarterly taxes were due, it made a big difference. It really is best practice. Third, track all of your income carefully. You can use a spreadsheet, accounting software, even a notebook, I suppose, but make sure that you're recording what you earn, exactly what you earn. It makes calculating your quarterly estimates so much easier. I personally use a very simple money tracking spreadsheet. It lets me see exactly how much I'm making, and I can compare it to past years and months. That way, I always have a clear picture of where I stand financially. Now, I'll speak more on my simple method of keeping track of my income in an upcoming episode, and I'll show you an example of what works for me. The fourth thing, which I've already mentioned, is don't forget your state taxes. It's easy to remember the IRS, but if you're in a state that does collect quarterly taxes from freelancers, you'll want to make sure that you are not delayed with that payment. Be sure that you're paying both federal and state if that applies to you. And again, while most states follow the IRS dates that I previously gave, please be sure to check your state specifically. Last, but still very important, is ask for help if you need it. If you're not sure of how much to pay or if your income is inconsistent, that's where an accountant or tax advisor can really help. They can run the numbers so that you don't underpay or overpay. This is important because if you underpay, you could face penalties or interest charges. On the other hand, if you overpay by too much, you're basically giving the government an interest-free loan instead of keeping that money working for you in your business. Personally, my accountant helps me figure out the right amount to pay each quarter. There are different ways to pay quarterly taxes. I tend to pay an equal amount each quarter based on the advice that my accountant gave me for me in my business. But sometimes I do have to adjust the amount that I pay from year to year, depending on what I earned the previous year or what I expect to earn in the current year. I find that having that guidance from a certified tax professional really helps me stay accurate and avoid surprises that I would prefer to avoid. So, paying quarterly taxes isn't fun, but it's better than the alternative of getting hit with a massive tax bill in April, along with possible penalties for underpayment or late payment. So staying on top of it helps you avoid surprises and keeps your business running smoothly. So to wrap this all up, if you're freelancing, remember that taxes aren't usually withheld for you. Of course, there are some exceptions, as I mentioned in a previous video. There are some freelancers who work more on a contract basis and get paid with a W-2. In that case, your taxes are withheld for you, but if you're getting paid on a 1099, like many of us do, you are responsible for paying those quarterly taxes, because both the state and the federal government expect you to pay them. So mark the dates on your calendar, set aside money regularly, and use tools like the IRS Direct Pay website or even the credit card if you need to use that option to make those payments. And one last reminder, again, I'm not a tax professional. I'm just sharing what I've learned as a freelancer. If you have questions about your specific situation, please consult a qualified tax advisor. Thanks for tuning in. I'd really appreciate it if you subscribe. If you're enjoying these videos, then you'll get notified of the next one. I am doing them regularly, and I hope to see you in the next episode. Take care. Bye-bye.